Hello, so good evening and a warm welcome to the November 3rd Thursday lecture. My name is Ryoko Matsuba and I work here at the Sensei Institute as a lecturer in Japanese digital arts and humanities. This evening, we are pleased to welcome Dr. Monika Hinkel to deliver her talk entitled Reflections on Yoshida, Three Generations of Japanese Printmaking. Dr. Hinkel is a curator and lecturer of Japanese art based in the UK, specializing in Japanese woodblock prints. In 2024, this year, she curated the Dulwich Picture Gallery exhibition, Yoshida Three Generations of Japanese Printmaking, and produced the accompanying catalog. I can show you a bit over here. Okay, and then the exhibition, the first in the UK and Europe, dedicated to the renowned Yoshida family of printmakers, highlighted the family's creative legacy across three generations from Yoshida Hiroshi to his granddaughter Yoshida Ayomi. Featuring 6 artists, 3 male and 3 female, it showcased the evolution of print styles and themes within the family. Sadly, the exhibition itself has now concluded. However, tonight, Dr. Hinkel will share her reflections on this landmark exhibition and its significance. The session will run until around 7, followed for 10 minutes by the Q&A. There are 2 different text boxes, one in the chat box and the other is the Q&A at the bottom of the screen. Please post your questions for Dr. Hinkel in the Q&A box either before or during the Q&A session. I'll now hand over to Dr. Hinkel.
Thank you very much indeed for your kind introduction, Yoko, and thank you very much to everyone at SysCheck for inviting me today to give this Third Thursday lecture. It's such a pleasure to be here. It feels a bit strange talking about the exhibition now that it has finished, but the talk will give a wonderful opportunity to revisit the show and for those who were not able to see it in person, to explore the exhibition and its themes now during this talk. This is what I would like to highlight during my lecture. First, establishing the connection between the Yoshida family and the Dulwich Picture Gallery. As the title of the exhibition said, we are focusing in the exhibition also on Japanese printmaking, and here highlighting in the second part the role of the Yoshida family within Japanese printmaking. In the third part, I would like to highlight then the various parts and sections of the exhibition, and in particular those 3 generations that Yoko already mentioned. I would like to highlight what the focus is, the legacy of this unique dynasty and its 6 members that we showcased in the show. And in the final part, and also here and there throughout my talk, I will present some reflections about this show. Let's look at the Yoshida family and the Dulwich Picture Gallery. The Dulwich Picture Gallery, just a little bit of background, it's the world's first purpose-built public art gallery. It was founded in 1811 when Sir Francis Bourgeois bequeathed his collection of old masters for the inspection of the public, and it was opened in 1817. The building is one of the finest examples of gallery architecture in Britain and was designed by the leading architect, Sir John Soane, at the personal request of his friend, Sir Francis Bourgeois, who had left a fund of £2,000 to establish a permanent home for his collection. The commission also included a mausoleum for the gallery's founders, and which you can see here actually in the left-hand photograph here in the middle. The gallery has undergone several alterations since Soane's day, but it consisted originally only of 5 rooms linked by a series of arches, creating an endless sense of space. The pioneering roof lanterns diffuse a natural light, and from the top, so it is ideal to view and showcase artworks. The building has influenced the design of art galleries ever since, such as the Kimball Art Museum in Texas or the Getty Museum in LA. And the collection, as you can see here in the slide on the right-hand side, is famous for its amazing collection of old masters like Rembrandt, Rubens, or Van Dyck. So the exhibition that I was the project curator of this year of Yoshida, 3 Generations of Japanese Printmaking, was shown here at the Dulwich Picture Gallery in Southeast London from the 19th of June to the 3rd of November. And as Yoko already mentioned, it was the first UK exhibition, or the first European exhibition on this Japanese printmaking dynasty. And you see there the entrance of the building, and also on the right-hand side, the cover of the catalogue. So what was the connection between the Dulwich Picture Gallery and the Yoshida family of printmakers? It goes all down to the patriarch, the founder of the dynasty, Yoshida Hiroshi, who you see here on the left-hand side. And he visited the gallery together with his fellow artist, Nakagawa Hachiro. They bought a one-way ticket initially to the United States, and after a very successful sales exhibition of their works in various American cities, they traveled to Europe and arrived in Liverpool at the end of May 1900. They stayed in London for about 2 weeks, visiting many galleries and museums, and also buying art supplies. And they knew about the Dulwich Picture Gallery, but it actually took them 3 attempts to visit the gallery. The first time they headed to Victoria Station and asked a policeman there how they would get to the gallery, and the policeman told them there is no such thing. The second attempt was thwarted by fog, but eventually on their third attempt, they made their way from Victoria Station by steam train to Dulwich to visit the gallery on Tuesday, the 29th of May, 1900. And we know that because both of them, during their visit, as you can see here on the right-hand side, signed the visitor book of the gallery. There are various famous artists in that visitor book, also Van Gogh, for example, or Monet also signed the visitor book. And you see it there where the red arrow is, Hiroshi Yoshida, and underneath Hachiro Nakagawa, and also the address they were staying at a place close to Euston Square. So this is the initial connection, and which kick-started the exhibition. It was the gallery's curator, Helen Hilliard, who found that signature 2 years ago. And this started the whole process of this exhibition and the whole project. At the time when Hiroshi visited the gallery, he was not yet a printmaker. He was still a yoga artist, an artist of Western style painting. And I'm also mentioning here that he was not born Yoshida Hiroshi, but Ueda Hiroshi. He was adopted by his art teacher, Yoshida Kazaburo, who was the father of his later wife, Yoshida Fujio. He was a very talented artist, a very talented painter, and so he got adopted into the Yoshida family. And you see one of his watercolors here on the right-hand side. Let's move into the second part of my talk on the Yoshida family and Japanese printmaking. And there is a switch then from 1920 onwards, because this was the year Yoshida Hiroshi met the print publisher Watanabe Shuzaburo. And Watanabe was the initiator, the founder of the so-called new print Shinhanga movement. So it was only at the age of 44 when Hiroshi met this publisher and turned to woodblock printmaking. So after working as a painter for most of his artistic life, Hiroshi began to design his first prints for Watanabe, which the workshop produced and the print shop sold. So the Shinhanga movement was revitalizing the old ukiyo-e system of the Edo period, the ukiyo-e or the print quartet, consisting of a publisher, a print designer like Hiroshi, and he worked together with professional carvers and printers. Some of Hiroshi's initial 8 prints showing Japanese landscapes were first exhibited at the Sheokiya department store in Nihonbashi in June 1921. Unfortunately, the premises of the Watanabe studio, which stored carved woodblocks and prints by various artists, including those by Hiroshi, were destroyed in the Kanto earthquake and fire that struck Tokyo on the 1st of September, 1923. And here are just some examples of Shinhanga prints. These were not exhibited in the exhibition, just to show you some main themes of Shinhanga that are basically continuing the topics of ukiyo-e with the figurative themes of actors and beauties, or famous views, cityscapes, and landscapes. But also another strand of Japanese printmaking was hugely important. The creative print movement, the Sosaku Hanga movement, that was basically kickstarted by Yamamoto Kanai's print Fisherman in 1904. Also, these prints were not part of the exhibition, but this movement is really vital for the second generation of Yoshida artists. And behind the creative print movement is the thought that an artist should be in charge of every step of the print production. So ideally, the creative print artist designs the print, carves, and also prints his own work. So this was really important for creative print artists. So there was this dichotomy between these two, the creative print movement and also the Shinhanga movement. But even Hiroshi carved around 16 of his print designs and was involved in the printing process of many more of his works. So there is also breaking up of the traditional Shinhanga technique. We also were able, and here is a very strong narrative of the exhibition that I wanted to follow, is printmaking. And it was really a focus of the show, the family within the history of Japanese printmaking. And we had a video that in the background there that you see in the top right that showed the production process of some of Hiroshi's prints taken. The video was taken from the special exhibition Yoshida Hiroshi commemorating the 70th anniversary of his death that was shown in 2021 at the Tokyo Metropolitan Art Museum. In the video, one of the Yoshida studio printers explains the process, and also Tsukasa, Toshi's son, the second generation artist, also added some comments. And you see there in front of the video screen, we have some original tools and woodblocks by Hiroshi that Ayomi, his granddaughter, kindly lent us. And these are situated in that mausoleum that I referred to at the beginning of my talk. Let's have a look at those 3 generations of Japanese printmaking. And as Yoko already mentioned at the beginning, it's not just the 3 generations that I wanted to focus on, but it was also that we have, next to 3 male artists, also 3 female artists who were really, already before they met their husbands, important figures in Japanese art, in Japanese painting, in their own right. So this was really a very crucial point for me to showcase this highly unique and unusual setup of this family, and yeah, the strong contribution of female artists within this printmaking dynasty. So we have the first generation highlighted in the exhibition by Hiroshi and his wife Fujio. The second generation was shown by with works by Toshi, the firstborn son, and the secondborn son Hodaka, and his wife Chizuko. And then the third generation was highlighted with a site-specific installation by the current generation artist Ayomi. And this was the layout of the exhibition. You see there in the bottom left, this was the entrance of the exhibition. And then in the first gallery space, oops, excuse me, we showcased the work of the founder of this dynasty, Yoshida Hiroshi. In the second gallery space, we showed the works by Yoshida Fujio and the firstborn son Toshi. Then you have the mausoleum display. And in the third gallery space, we have the works by Yoshida Hodaka, the second-born son, and the daughter-in-law or the wife of Hodaka, Chizuko. And then in the final room, the site-specific installation by the third generation artist Yoshida Ayomi. And you see here some panoramic views of those gallery spaces. So here the blue, the blue one is the first space of Yoshida Hiroshi. Beneath is the second gallery space. Then on the right, the pink and gray space is the third gallery of Hodaka and Chizuko. And in the bottom right, the final room with Ayomi's installation. So this was the whole layout of the exhibition. The loans from the exhibition, we had almost 80 works in the exhibition, and 3/4 of the works were loaned from the Fukuoka Art Museum on the southern island of Kyushu in Japan. But we also had loans from the British Museum, in particular the part that covers Chizuko's prints, and also loans from the Ashmolean Museum in Oxford. And these were also supported by loans from a Japanese private collection. So let's head into the first generation and the first room of the exhibition that you see here on the screen. As said, the first room was completely dedicated to Hiroshi. He specialized in landscapes, fukeiga in Japanese, and famous views, meisho, meishoe, very much following the footsteps of previous generations of print designers. And in this first room, we showed 26 works ranging from the years 1925 to 1940. Particular, the case there in the middle is really interesting, that was a loan from the Ashmolean Museum that showed us sort of the whole production process of one of his series, The Junk. But on the left-hand side here, you see the first prints that we are starting with. But above that, these were the panels that gave some background information on Hiroshi. And you see here also in the case the visitor book that he signed. And also within the label, there was a little photograph of his diary entry, because he remembered and wrote in his diary about his visit in Dulwich, and he said that he enjoyed it very much, but he had to leave his camera by the entrance, but was amazed by all the wonderful Rembrandts and Van Dycks and Murillos that he was able to see there. But what is really so interesting when we look at Yoshida Hiroshi and his printmaking career is that after the premises of Watanabe Shozabudo's workshop were destroyed during the Kanto earthquake, Hiroshi and Fujio set off on a round the world trip, which brought them to the United States and to Venice, to Europe. And when they returned to Japan in 1925, Hiroshi opened his own print shop, workshop in Tokyo. And he became publisher and print designer artist in one person. So already opening up and changing this quartet that existed. And he then, in his workshop, engaged professional carvers and printers that then created his visions. But as I said, he sometimes was also involved, at least in 16 prints, in the carving process and in the printing process many more times. So he had really an in-depth insight and knowledge about the whole process. He produced around 250 prints in his lifetime, and he was, through his travels and visiting so many Western museums and galleries, also heavily impacted by Western art, in particular Impressionism. And in his prints, we certainly see also that he was a watercolorist before he became a printmaker. And his prints often have, due to a lot of overprinting of the pigments, a very painterly effect. But these were the first two series that were created, the United States series and the Europe series, that he created with those craftsmen in his own workshop in Tokyo after opening his own workshop in 1925. What I also highlighted within this room, and when I gave tours, was also some additions in his prints that show us this slightly changed workshop system. He often included the kanji, the characters jizuri, which means self-printed, on the margin, often in red. Here you see it on the left-hand margin. And this doesn't mean that he always printed his prints himself, but it simply showcases and hints at the close involvement with the whole process, the carving and also the printing process. But what is also quite unique within his work is that he gives his prints English titles. So here, this is the print Honest Grocery. We see it on the bottom margin in pencil, added to the print, and also his signature, not in the Japanese way, Yoshida Hiroshi, but in the Western way, Hiroshi Yoshida. Also showing that these prints were also catering to a Western audience. And also particular the fact that he included many Western views, whether from the United States or from his trips to Europe or later in the 1930s of India, into his oeuvre, really set him apart from other Shinhanga masters. There is a continuation that we see here in these two sets of prints that shows a continuation from ukiyo-e that I also wanted to highlight, this continuation of tradition, producing a series on a selected motif. Think of the 36 Views of Mount Fuji by Hokusai, for example, and showcasing these selected motifs then at various times of the day or during changing weather conditions. This was really an aspect that he partly was inspired by old ukiyo-e masters, but also, of course, when we think of Claude Monet's Haystacks, for example, also something that he took on from Western artifacts. But we certainly have native scenes. We have this watercolor effect, a painterly quality within his prints that you see here quite nicely, in particular here, Itoigawa in the morning and in the evening, that show us the impact of Impressionism and those many layers of pigments that we encounter in his prints. Another connection that I wanted to draw that I can do here during the talk, we did not have the Hiroshige print of Kamedo Shrine in the exhibition, but most definitely here making a connection to older print masters. That's what Hiroshi did here with his version from 1927 in his series of 12 Scenes of Tokyo, also showing this famous drum bridge of Kamedo Shrine. At the head wall of this first room, we showed the print Kumoi cherry trees there on the left-hand side. And this is really a very unique print because It is the largest format Yoshida Hiroshi ever used for his woodblocks. Usually you have this Oban format, which is slightly larger than A4, but this is basically 3 times an Oban format. And you see here really absolute perfect alignment of these 3 individual woodblocks that he created. This amazing view here, Kumoe cherry trees, showing a scene here in Yoshino, this famous site that has been famous for centuries for cherry blossom viewing. And he shows here also the inspiration of this print on the right-hand side. It was a watercolor, so some of his works are not just inspired by sketches that he made throughout his travels, but also by watercolors that he had produced prior. So here we have Memories of Japan from 1899, that is in the Detroit Institute of Arts, that served as an inspiration for this print there on the left-hand side. And I wanted to highlight this because this print served as inspiration for his granddaughter Ayomi for her installation in the final room. Let's move on into the second room and the continuation of the first generation of artists of the Yoshida family, here on the right-hand side with works by his wife, Fujio. And I also included some photographs. I think it's always nice to put a face to a name. So we have here Fujio in the right-hand corner. On the left-hand side, the first one, Toshi, and his wife. And then next to Fujio is Hodaka, and standing is Chizuko. And Fujio, who married Hiroshi in 1907, she was a very talented artist in her own right. She became one of the first female artists to study Western style painting, yoga in Japan, and was one of the first Japanese female artists to be recognized internationally. She traveled a lot with Hiroshi and later also with Hodaka and Chizuko, and her works here are 2 of her watercolors, often show scenes from daily life, traditional Japanese culture, and nature motifs. She really played an essential role in the Yoshida family's printmaking business, managing the production and distribution of their prints. And she is also famous for one of the co-founders of the so-called Shuyokai, the Vermilion Leaf Society, in October 1918, which became the first association of female Japanese artists in Japan. And the group aimed to support women artists by providing an environment to learn and exchange and exhibit their works. And this association, this society, still exists today. We showed 6 works by Fujio in the show that were made between 1953 and 1954. There are only around 16 prints altogether that she produced in her career. And these designs started in the early 1950s, and it marked Fujio's return to woodblock printing after a nearly 30-year interruption. This series also was based on a series of oils that she had created previously, and these are among her most celebrated works. She created these extremely large enlarged views by putting flower heads in fish bowls to achieve, or behind fish bowls to achieve, this magnifying glass effect. And in 1959, Oliver Stedler actually notes that the newest addition to the Yoshida family of printmakers is actually the oldest one of the group. And she really was inspired by the more abstract work that her sons were producing in the 1950s after the death of Hiroshi. And so I picked here 6 of those prints: Gladiolus, Iris, and Red Canna. And we know that most of these designs were produced in the creative print style. So she self-carved and self-printed these prints as well, these designs. And she really manages to capture sort of the fine and delicate details of the insides of the flowers with undulating lines, producing fascinating floral abstractions, and also plays with the impact of light in her work. Let's move on to the second generation and the firstborn son, Toshi. So here you see a further view of that second room, reflecting nicely also the colors, the wall colors that you would encounter within the prints. We showed 20 works by Toshi ranging from 1938 to 1985, and he made around 450 prints in his lifetime, and 300 of them were abstract works. Following the sudden passing of Hiroshi in 1950, Toshi became the head of the family, initially focusing on restoring their finances, which had suffered during and after the war. He took on the leadership of the Yoshida studio, promoting his father's work and expanding the studio that his father had established. The workshop continued to produce reprints of his father's designs, but also produced, of course, Toshi's own designs. Toshi continued very much in the tradition, initially followed his father's style and subject matter, working in the Shenhanga new print style. However, he also developed his own style, which explored new approaches to color application and landscape compositions. And particularly after his father's passing, who did not really like abstract art, he became he explored abstract art. And as I said, he produced around 300 works, but later in his life returned to more traditional naturalistic scenes. And here you see two views from 1938 and 39 from a Tokyo series where he produced views of Ryogoku Bridge and Shinjuku. The motif that we chose for the cover of the catalog. So also continuing in that tradition of ukiyo masters of showcasing famous views, of showing cityscapes within these formats of producing a series. But what is really fascinating to see here is exploration of how he reproduced and visualized the reflection of light, for example. In the first room, we showed the Himeji Castle print by Hiroshi that you see here on the left-hand side. And on the right-hand side, we see the castle at Himeji in the version of Toshi. So also here, I mean, I could have given the exhibition also the title Continuity and Change, because here within these views of Himeji Castle, we do see a continuation of the same theme, but Toshi not just copying his father, but producing his own view in a horizontal way, and also a different aspect and view onto the castle, a different perspective that he gives us. But he explored even more and did his own stamp within his printmaking. So we see here Wisteria Garden by Hiroshi in the top right, and Toshi experimented with so-called white line prints, where we don't have the key block was usually produced in black outline with black ink, but here these are white outlines. So a really interesting approach, a more minimalist approach that he chose here for the series of famous Zen gardens in Kyoto. But as I said, he very much experimented with abstract works, and in particular, like his father, he also traveled with his family to the United States and was mesmerized by the national parks, in particular Monument Valley. And we see here one of his more abstract works in the top left corner, Frontier, from 1962. And he often compared these monoliths and these rocks that he encountered in the American landscapes with the skyscrapers of Tokyo. And the work Frontier really shows how a particular sort of those lines in the lower half really almost look like windows. And also the rock in the background also seems to have dotted a variety of windows across its front. So really experimenting with these views of naturalistic scenes, but then showcasing them in a more abstract way. But as I already said in the introduction to Toshi, later in his life, he returned to a more naturalistic style, and we have here this print of Monument Valley from 1971. This was a year when he actually took his family in an Airstreamer from the East Coast all the way to the West Coast, and they came along Monument Valley. And towards the end of his life, through various journeys to Africa, he also discovered his love for the African scenery. And in 1985, he actually ventured to Africa again, and he became famous for producing many children's books that he illustrated with African scenes. But here, this piece, Camouflage, the scenery, most definitely inspired by Africa. And in the 1930s, he took a trip to India with his father. And here we see Indian tigers that are hiding behind those grasses. Really one of the most exciting prints by him that we showed in the exhibition. Let's move on to the two further artists of the second generation within the third room of the exhibition. And you see here in the front, in the mauve-colored part, we see the prints by Hodaka, Toshi's brother. Hodaka was really an artist who challenged the traditions of his family. He rebelled against them. He said he never wanted to produce naturalistic scenes. And he really is also considered as a pioneer of early Japanese modernist printmaking. As he broke away from the traditional mold, he encouraged self-expression through sosaku hanga printmaking. He expanded the range of styles and techniques in his art form and developed really a new graphic language to express his ideas. He gained recognition for his abstract prints and was influenced by pop art and other Western art. And he really experimented with collage. He also was a famous photographer and combined different techniques with traditional woodblock print techniques like lithography, photo engraving, and etching. We showed 12 works ranging from 1954 to 1984 from his oeuvre, and he produced around 600 prints in his lifetime. And you already see here the versatility of topics. Konin Buddha was inspired by his honeymoon to Kyoto and Nara in 1953. Here, his version of those fabulous Buddhist sculptures that he had encountered there. And another print that we showed in this section was Kite from 1958. And it always reminds me of Kandinsky, for example. So like his father and brother beforehand, he also, together with his wife Chizuko, traveled a lot and explored Western art in a variety of exhibitions and also in magazines, and experimented with all these impressions and experiences. So here is really an absolute renewal that we encounter in the whole Yoshida idiom, particularly there the silk screen print on the left-hand side, nonsense mythology is certainly impacted. Just look at the colors here, the orange and the contrasting blue by pop art. Or on the other side, mythology of outskirts of town, day. We see the influence also of traditional printmaking in the bokashi of the sky, the blue, the gradation that is applied there, but also here the experimentation with photo engraving. So these houses that you see there in the middle ground, these are houses that he had photographed on his many trips to Mexico. And then experimenting here also with placing these females and the nightingale in the foreground, giving us a very surrealist moment here within this print. This leads us basically into the second section of this room, but I also wanted to show you here this photograph that we included in the exhibition of Hodaka and Chizuko's family. They just returned from a trip to Mexico, all clad out in souvenirs from that trip. And you see there on the bench on the right-hand side, Ayomi with her father and Takasuke, her brother, a jewelry designer, sitting together with Chizuko, who I will showcase now. She was one of the most innovative Japanese printmakers during the second half of the 20th century. She was part, like Hodaka, part of an avant-garde community of writers, intellectuals, and artists who frequently gathered to exchange ideas about international developments in modern art and politics. And this led Chizuko to move away from realism in her work and explore abstraction, blending Western modernist ideas with Japanese aesthetic principles. She continued to explore this throughout her career, experimenting with new themes, techniques in her work, and this was really a testament to her creativity and innovation. We showed 12 works by Chizuko, ranging from 1953 to 1995. And particular the work here, Jazz, on the left-hand side, shows you her origin. She initially did not want to become an artist. Her parents, she was born in Yokohama. They were collectors of art, but she wanted to become a dancer. But due to an accident, she could not follow this dream, and then started with oil painting at the Hongo Art Institute, and later also became a printmaker. But she always listened to music while she created her works. And I always said during my tours, the print jazz, you really feel you are sort of thrown into a jazz club. You see these swirls on the left-hand side. On the right-hand side, those strokes almost look like a piano, and you can almost hear the swirling sounds in a jazz cellar somewhere in a jazz bar. But she also, with Hodaka together and the children, they traveled a lot. And on her travels, she often gathered and collected shells. So we have a few series that she created where she incorporates these various forms of shells in her designs. But another, and this was the first print of the Chizuko section that we showed, was her version of the Tenyoji Garden from 1953. This was the earliest piece that we showed. And I just wanted to juxtapose it here to the design that was created by her brother-in-law, Toshi, 10 years later, simply also to show this continuity, but also the own versions that these two artists had on this iconic garden, Zen garden in Kyoto. But what I just said, the innovation that she brought, the connection that she made with traditional Japanese art. So White Layer A here on the right-hand side shows us blind embossing, blind printing. So that is already showcased in Edo period prints of the 18th and 19th century. This kind of blind printing, experimenting here with inserting really just very minimal color effects there on the right-hand side, or experimenting and referencing avant-garde calligraphy on the piece there on the left-hand side, something within or internal it is called. So really, again, like Hodaka did in printmaking, experimenting with a variety of techniques and really bringing a complete renewal to the Yoshida family of printmakers. Or here, probably more relating to this gradation effect, but also bringing it to different levels here. Cool breeze is seen, experimenting with scenery that she had encountered in Hokkaido, or the print there on the right-hand side, a view at the western suburb of the metropolis. Rainy season is really important because this was published by the Nihon Hanga Kyokai, the Japan Print Association. They had invited 100 artists to contribute to this series, and it shows the standing of Chizuko within printmaking in Japan, that she was included with this view that was produced, or shows us this view from the Metropolitan Office in Shinjuku in northwest Tokyo, across the suburbs where she and Hodaka lived. And it has sort of a slightly melancholic vibe to it, because in 1995, this was the year Hodaka passed away. But let me now enter with you together the third generation and the final room of the exhibition. And as I said before, this room was dedicated to Yoshida Ayomi. And this is a print by her that we did not show in the exhibition, but this is also part of the same 100 Views of Tokyo series by the Nihon Hanga Kyokai. Simply, I wanted to showcase also the importance of Ayomi as a printmaker. So she is the youngest member of the family and the most conceptual artist of the family. She is the daughter of Hodaka and Chizuko and the granddaughter of Hiroshi, and follows the woodblock tradition of her family, but brings it really into a contemporary moment. She was born and raised in Tokyo, and this is where she still lives and works. She was educated at Wako University, and initially she was interested in architecture. And from that perspective, I don't think it is surprising that she brings installations into the whole Yoshida world of printmaking, that she produces whole room installations to expand the boundaries of printmaking beyond the sheet of paper. But she's also, very much involved with printmaking, as you will see in her installation. But what I wanted to showcase is that these two images show, on the right-hand side, she visited the gallery to have a view and inspect the site for installation, this final room of the installation. And when she came to the Dulwich Picture Gallery in June last year, we showed her also the visitor book with her grandfather's signature. And this was a very emotional moment for everyone who was present, because she touched the signature of her grandfather. She never met him. He died in 1950. She was born in 1958. And so this was a very moving moment. And then we invited her at the opening reception on the 18th of June this year to also provide a signature. And this signature by Ayomi will then be archived together with the visitor book with her grandfather's signature. This is the installation that she produced. It's called Transient Beauty. Here we see the importance of cherry blossoms, of hanami, flower viewing, the custom in Japanese culture. So we have two major themes here: seasonality and impermanence, that are crucial within Japanese art in general, Japanese culture, and also within Japanese printmaking. So we have on either side these two wall hangings, and the head wall is decked out in wood blocks. As already said, Kumoe cherry trees by her grandfather served as an inspiration, but also when she visited the Dulwich Picture Gallery last year, she also heard about the Yoshino cherry trees that are dotted around Dulwich Village and Herne Hill, close to the gallery. And so these two aspects inspired her or served as an inspiration for this installation in this final room. And it was the first time that the skylights were actually opened, and we see the impact of daylight and the changing weather conditions. And this really brings us full circle and shows us a continuity with Hiroshi's prints, where he also created these versions of a motif during different daylights and weather conditions. So this was absolutely unique, this installation. It does not exist anymore. I've just been to the new exhibition this week on Monday. It completely changed. So a lot of visitors said this actually should stay here. This should be Ayomi's room. It was really absolutely unique. It was temporary and shows us really her vision for this room. So on either side, we have these cherry trees. Here, the full blooming cherry tree on one side. And she and her team attached 10,000 printed cherry blossom petals made of Gampi paper. And these were attached in the 2 weeks that it took to install this work by her. And you see here these beautiful, beautifully printed petals that were printed, carved and printed and cut out by her. And this panel, the design that you see here, the tree and also the riverscape at the bottom, that was initially designed by her in the woodblock printing technique in Japan and was then transferred digitally to the UK, to the gallery. And this was then produced here on a synthetic gauze material and then installed here as this kind of wallpaper or wall hanging. This is, yeah, the same technique goes for the left-hand side of this installation. So also this motif here of the rain, of the impact of the rain on the cherry blossom branch here, and the wind as well. This was also designed originally in the woodblock print technique and was then transferred digitally onto these synthetic gauze panels. And this back wall shows us the continuation of the cherry blossom, of the rain and rain clouds and the riverscape at the bottom. And these are 30 woodblock panels. They are made out of birchwood, plywood, and it shows us the importance of the technique of carving and working with wood blocks for Ayomi. And she often incorporates wood shavings in her work. So this was really fascinating to see the delicate carvings that she incorporated in this wall. So next to seasonality and impermanence, there is a third aspect incorporated in the installation, and this is playfulness. Just look where these petals are traveling to. So across the door frame onto the floor. So there is this playfulness that you encounter in many of Japanese artworks too, that she included also in, she included here in her design. But with these kind of installations, she also wants to show us or alert us to environmental issues, the impact of climate change. She is concerned about the continuity of traditions surrounding Hanami, whether these rituals surrounding Hanami will continue. There's already a change in the timings when Hanami and when the cherry blossoms start to bloom. So this is also an aspect that she wants to highlight with her installations. Generally, people found the installation absolutely mesmerizing and meditative. And as I already said, they wished it could have stayed in this room. And to finish off my talk, just a few reflections. Overall, the show received an overwhelmingly positive response from all visitors. We had to extend the opening hours for the last 2 weekends, and the visitors had to queue every day. The catalog and its reprint by Paul Hoberton Publishing sold out. All the wonderful merchandise is gone too. The events program was also hugely popular, especially the final event at the end of October, when we invited Ayomi for a conversation with Dulwich's curator Helen Hilliard about her work. The overall visitor figure was just under 60,000. And there was a lot of interest beyond the gallery. I was invited to give a talk at the Embassy of Japan in London about the exhibition. I also gave a talk at the former Prime Minister's residence, Sir Edward Heath's residence, because he collected Hiroshi prints. I gave a talk at his former residence, Arundels in Salisbury, and I was also able to speak at and talk about the catalogue and the show at the Cheltenham Literature Festival. And I was asked many times why this exhibition caused such a buzz and was so popular. And I think because I focused on the aspect of the family, the different generations, the connections, the development of their works, referencing their own works or other artists of the past or Western artists, and also, members being inspired by their own family members. And I think somehow people could relate to that and understand how they evolved as a printmaking dynasty. And just this final slide, I would like to take this talk as an opportunity to thank the show's sponsors that are shown on the right, but I would also like to thank everyone at Dulwich, as these shows are always a team effort. In particular, I would like to thank the director Jennifer Scott, curator Helen Hilliard, the exhibition manager Jessica Litherland, Jane Findlay, Alexander Moore, Aileen Kissack, Tom Short, Nathan Graham, exhibition designer Melanie Moose, and all the wonderful volunteers and everyone who supported the project. Thank you very much for having me as a project curator for this special exhibition. It was really a fascinating experience. And I would like to thank you all for your attention tonight. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Monica, and many congratulations for your successful exhibition. So I went to the exhibition last month, but I equally enjoyed your talk tonight, just like you made some private tour for us this evening. And we have already have 3 questions. Please post your question to Monica on the Q&A box at the bottom of the screen. So we already have the 3 questions. The first questions was Fujio influenced by George O'Keeffe, American artist? Is there any evidence of this?
If I would have taken a pound every time someone during my tours or during the various talks asked me whether there was an impact, an influence from George O'Keeffe on Fujio. The family generally denies that, but I think looking at both artists and their work of enlarged flowers, most certainly there is a resemblance. I think in Fujio's prints there is more of a human element visible, and also the way she experiments with the impact of light is slightly different. There is a certain warmth in her prints that is, I think, fairly unique to her prints. But I most definitely see and can understand why people think and ask whether there is an influence by George O'Keeffe on her work.
Thank you so much. Next question. Thank you for the talk. I'm wondering, first question, why did Hiroshi stop watercolor and switch to printmaking? this is the first question.
Mhm.
Shall I do from the first? Yeah, shall I ask? We got the 4 questions. Let's start from the first, right? Why did Hiroshi stop watercolor and switch to printmaking?
So, as I mentioned at the beginning of the talk, this was really due to his meeting with the print publisher Watanabe Shozaburo in 1920, when he was 44 years old. The print publisher Watanabe, invited him to produce designs for his print shop to then have these produced into prints. So this initial meeting with this print publisher then served as a reason, as an impetus for Hiroshi to switch to printmaking. He enjoyed the process and the involvement with the Watanabe workshop, but as I said, what he did not like was the strong feature of the publisher, who had the say of already during the Edo period in the finances, or maybe even the topics. So that is why he then decided to open his own print shop. And he also had realized on his trip after the Kanto earthquake, he took some of his prints that he had produced with Watanabe, that he had saved, to the United States. And he also saw how popular these prints were, and he sold them. So that is why the first prints of the Yoshida family made their way to the United States. And this is one of the reasons why they are much more famous in the United States and had many more exhibitions there. So this is really partly the reason. One is meeting Watanabe, but also seeing the popularity of these prints, that he then decided to become a print artist.
Thank you so much. And second question, how did he manage to achieve such effect in his prints? There are so many details and shades. I've just started woodblock printmaking and can't get my head around how he did it.
This is really, absolutely fascinating. I didn't go too much in my talk into the whole production process, but as you probably know, we have the key block for the outlines usually, and there already Hiroshi changed that, sometimes not using black ink, but gray ink. To have a different effect there. But then for each of the colors, you usually carve a separate woodblock. And what he also did is overprint with various pigments and various tones and colors again and again the same section, creating an overlay of various pigments and tones. So that is how he achieved these this painterly quality that I always call it painterly quality. And this shading technique that he incorporates with this overprinting of various pigments and shades. So this was really, usually in ukiyo-e, you have maybe 10, 15 woodblocks, but with his prints, you have 20, 25, 30, up to 50 woodblocks and overprinting stages. And there was one print of the Yomemon, for example, the Yomemon in Nikko, where we know over 100 stages of overprinting were involved to get this kind of layering of tones and subtleties and shading within his prints. So there was a lot of printing involved by him and his professional printers in his workshop.
Okay, thank you so much. And the next question. Also, was there experienced carvers, woodcutters, able to produce such elaborate prints in 1920s? Wasn't the art slowly dying out due to loss of interest, the arrival of photography?
That is a very, very good question. So I didn't really go into that. So the reason why Watanabe Shozaburo kind of founded the Shinhanga movement was to really revitalize the old ukiyo-e quartet, because when Japan opened up in 1868, during the Meiji period, a lot of these new technologies like photography and lithography entered Japan. And the Meiji period is often seen sort of as the last hooray, basically, of Japanese traditional printmaking. And designers and carvers and printers really towards the end of the Meiji period did struggle, and they then often worked for poster designers, postcard designers, and so forth, graphic designers, because it was kind of dying out. And this new print movement really caused, that, or enabled carvers and printers that were still around to be able to work in this traditional setup of this quartet again, together with Watanabe and an artist who produced the designs. So that was really reinvigorating this old system and providing those carvers and printers really a new avenue to produce works again.
Okay. And then next question. Why Hiroshi and his wife traveled so much? Were they financed by the government?
Well, not really, no. They were so successful. So the first time when Hiroshi traveled or left Japan in 1899 and traveled to the United States, he and Nakagawa Hachiro had exhibitions there of their paintings. And they sold their paintings and they made a lot of money. This is one of the reasons why they then ventured on to Britain and further afield. And this also happened then again in 1902, 1903 with Fujio, and then later on in 1904 or 5 when they went together on their sojourn around the United States and Europe, selling their work. And I think there was even an exhibition, was it in Providence or so, where Fujio actually sold more works than Hiroshi. So from that perspective, that is why we can see her as the first internationally known Japanese female artist, because she was already selling and showcasing her work at these exhibitions, and they were selling their work and they were popular. So interestingly enough, they did not have these exhibitions either, of their paintings, and later Hiroshi of his prints in Europe. That is why we never really had this kind of special exhibition on this family in Europe until now. So, which, here and there, maybe sort of smaller exhibitions like the Ashmolean have quite a lovely selection on Hiroshi's prints, particularly the India series that my colleague Claire Pollard showcased a few years back. So there are certainly here and there exhibitions that did show one or two of the artists, but they have never been shown in such a complete set of those 6 artists so far in the UK or Europe.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, the next question. Where's Ayomi's cherry tree artwork now?
Well, she deinstalled the installation. What I did find interesting, she did not consider those wall hangings that were digitally produced here in the UK on these synthetic gauze panels as artworks. So they were actually cut into small pieces, and she then detached all these flower petals, these blossoms from these panels. And she keeps those in boxes. She has wooden boxes that hold her installations, in particular then those 30 wooden panels from the back wall. And if there are buyers, if there are people who are interested, collectors, she would reinstall these, but never ever in the same way. So this was really an absolute unique feature for this site-specific installation here at Dulwich Picture Gallery. So whenever she would reinstall this, so to say, it would be in a slightly different way.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, thank you. So we have the message from Simon Kana and Elon Bush, so we will send the message to you later on. And then the question, so where did the money come from the fund Hiroshi's world travel? Was this from his career as a painter? Many thanks.
Exactly, yes. As I said, sort of these exhibitions that were organized in the United States. Yeah, he sold his paintings there, later his prints. Yeah, they became very famous. I mean, there are these two very famous exhibitions at the Toledo Museum of Art in the 1930s that showcased Yoshida prints. So it is, yeah, this very early connection with American buyers, with American collectors that enabled them to travel so much. And then, of course, opening up the art market as well with the other generations too. But yeah, it is thanks to their success as painters and also printmakers that enabled them to travel so much.
Thank you. I think one question we have in the chat box, so I will read. I was wondering if you could speak a bit about the current level of interest in Japanese woodblock prints and Japanese art in general here in the UK.
Well, it seems there is a very high level of interest. There are quite a few printmakers here in London and around London who came to the exhibition and really appreciated the versatility of techniques and also the kind of feedback that we received. So, I mean, there is currently in Woolwich, there is a print fair, a print exhibition going on. We have the London Printmakers Association is based in London as well. So there are a lot of printmakers here in the UK. I mean, what I should maybe point out in connecting to the Yoshida family, they did throughout their travels not also exhibit their work, but also offered workshops. So Toshi, for example, did also workshops here in the UK, and the whole family did many workshops in the United States. They did not really have pupils themselves, but they inspired a lot of Western artists across the United States and also across Europe. So, for example, the Scottish artist Paul Binney, who now lives in New York, he was inspired by Toshi. So we have a lot of artists who know about these generations. Particular, yeah, the print artists. A lot of visitors were surprised and were not so familiar with the second generation artists, but there is certainly a very strong group of printmakers across London and beyond in the UK who, yeah, appreciated this kind of exhibition and focusing also particular on the aspect of printmaking. So no, there's certainly a very strong interest there, and they are a very strong force here in the UK, I would say, printmakers.
Okay, so sorry, we have two more questions,
Sure.
but it is now okay. Well, let's do two. Is there anyone who will continue the family tradition after Ayomi, either a relative or distant?
Well, for her, she doesn't have any children. For her, it would be also a continuation that one, yeah, of the current Japanese artists or Western artists are inspired by her work in a way or by her family, that yeah, she would consider that as a continuation of the Yoshida legacy in a way, who are simply taking inspiration from her installations, from her woodblock prints that she produces, and hopes that it kind of lives on in their work.
Okay, thank you so much. This is a great question to conclude this evening. Thank you so much, Monica, for your very insightful and informative talk. The recording of the lecture will be uploaded to our YouTube channel, and we will also include the report of the lecture in our next e-bulletin, which will be released in early December. Once the webinar tonight concludes, you may receive an email from Zoom tomorrow containing a link to a feedback form, or you may find it directly in your browser window. We highly value your input and would appreciate any feedback you can provide. Your comments are crucial in helping us enhance and maintain our lecture series. For our upcoming third Thursday lecture on the 20th of December, we are delighted to welcome Dr. Yupin Luk, a curator from the British Museum. She will share her insight on the museum's current Silk Road exhibition with a focus on its East Asian aspects. We look forward to an illuminating talk and hope you can join us to deepen your understanding of this fascinating exhibition. Third Thursday lectures, which have been running since 2001, are greatly supported by our founders, Yakult UK, the Great Britain Sasakawa Foundation, and the Gatsby Charitable Foundation. The Sainsbury Institute wishes to thank our founders and our audience for supporting this lecture series. Thank you so much for giving a wonderful lecture, Monica, and thank you so much for our audience to join us tonight. So thank you so much and good night.
Thank you very much for having me. Thank you.